Art is dead. Dude, this is a headline I woke up to when I decided for the first time in forever to look up on the news and see what's going on in the world. But apparently art is dead, and that's because AI art is going to be taking over. And as someone who is already concerned with cementing a creative career, having the threat that some computer is going to steal my job sent me into a bit of a frenzy, to say the least. But the more I thought about it, the more I think that AI art and topics around this should have a larger discussion. So let's talk about it. What's up, howdy, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Rumbo, yay! And for those who don't know me, I'm an artist and a fine art student in South Africa, and I make videos just about that. So if those kind of topics interest you, you might want to stick around and hit the subscribe button down below. For today, we are going to be talking about AI art and my thoughts on it. I don't know much about AI art, and I am thinking about making more videos on the topic because it is quite interesting to think about. So if that interests you, then leave a like and a comment so that I know whether I should make more of these in the future. But for today, we're just going to be talking about it and what it means for artists in general. So before we get onto this video, make sure you subscribe, turn on my post notifications so you're notified when next I upload a video. I usually upload on Saturdays, but sometimes my schedule can change, so you want to keep those notifications turned on so you're notified when next I upload a video. Comment down below anything at all. So let's get started on what actually is AI generated art. Just a preface, I'm a very creative person. I did not go down the route of tech, all of that stuff. So everything I say here is going to be a very short definition. And if I get anything wrong, please correct me in the comments because this is very much not my terrain. AI generated art is pretty much that. It is artificial intelligence generated art or computer generated art. These systems where they generate artworks using some prompts or keywords that you type in. If you are on TikTok as lethally, excessively much as I am, you probably saw a couple months back or a couple weeks back, I really don't understand the framework of time right now, there was this filter where you could type in any random word and it would create this artwork through analyzing millions and millions and millions of images. They're realistic in the sense that they really do look human made. It's impressive how precise they are and how accurate they are to the keywords that you give it. And you can try, there are a bunch of free AI art generators online and also on TikTok, like I said, that you could play around with. So yeah, that is as much as I'm going to go into because I feel like if I say anything more, I'm going to get something wrong. So I'm just gonna move straight on to some of the stuff that I'm impressed by or stuff that I like about AI generated art, because I don't want this video to be just me completely harping on AI art being like, no, this stuff sucks. What I like about AI generated art is that it is pretty much a really impressive technological feat. Like I said, I'm not really familiar with what goes on in Silicon Valley or what goes on in the tech world, but the fact that these systems are so accurate and they're creating things that look so impressive and so like humanly made, really impressive, and I think it is a really good step forward in the tech world. I'm easily impressed, but this really did impress me. So the next thing that I like about AI generated art is that it can be a really good source for inspiration for us artists. Actually, I got this quote from a website, I think it was Elon Musk or whoever said, DALL-E assists human creativity and produces unique original images that have never existed before. And to an extent I agree with this quote because it can be a great source of inspiration for us artists. Nothing is original at this point, and every artist, you know, at some point in time in their creative process looks to other artists, looks to other stuff. It might not just be art, it might be anything for inspiration, and that's why nothing's original. Having these systems which create these images that never existed before offers you another source of inspiration, like seeing stuff in a way that I would have never thought of it before. One of the last things that I like about AI generated art is that it's pushing the creative discourse of art in tech spaces. Once again, very not familiar about tech, but the fact that art was something that they wanted to integrate and, you know, collaborate with in the tech world is pretty cool. And the fact that AI is such a booming topic, I mean, already art in itself is like a huge pinnacle column of society, but the fact that it is also, you know, being brought into this booming upcoming trending topic is really cool. And, you know, it's just keeping art in the discourse and art relevant in, you know, what's happening currently in society. Now to get onto some of the stuff that is concerning and some of the stuff that is should be talked about more, or should be like discussed among us artists and also in the general discourse. Some of the concerns, I'm just going to list them first and then we'll deep dive into them for the rest of this video. But the first concern is that some artists and some people have been seeing or predicting that AI generated art is going to be the thing that eliminates the need for artists, illustrators, etc., people in the creative industry. And this is not really something new. The tech world really likes kicking us out of our jobs. Already there's like a lot of like roles that we've had being switched up with robots, and now they're deciding to come for us artists' throats. So I don't appreciate that, Silicon Valley. Another thing is plagiarism and copyright issues. I mentioned it very briefly in the beginning, but they train these AI models through analyzing millions and millions of images, and some of that, a whole lot of that, included artworks from actual artists, like actual artworks. For the most part, from what I've researched, is non-consensual. Some artists have found their artworks in the databases or like wherever they see, you know, which images have been used to analyze, and it was non-consensual and they were upset by that. And also in general, the fact that there aren't a lot of like protection, legal protection with artists and artworks in general. And then the last thing is what I've thought about is the centralization of art in these discourses, which has always rubbed me the wrong way, and is one of the things I really wanted to talk about when I thought about this topic for this video. I know I started off this video saying art is dead, but truly I don't think so. And I'm pretty sure that's like a given, well, for a lot of reasons. First of all, art has literally been a huge part of our existence and human socialization since the dawn of time. We humans are animals who also need to express ourselves creatively. So the fact that some computers are going to kill that, not gonna happen. On the first concern that it will eliminate illustrators and artists from the job, and this also links into the third point, that there is an essentialization of art in this type of AI art generation and this type of discourse. It really just reduces art to be a thing that is more solely focused on the output rather than the entire process. And this might not be something that you fully are familiar with if you're not like a practicing artist. In my opinion, art is about the entire process, not just what you see at the end, not just the final product. And what I mean by this is there is so much that goes into an artwork or into an illustration. I am more so familiar on the artist side because I'm not an illustrator or a graphic designer, but I'm pretty sure the process is basically the same. There is so much experimentation, conceptualization, you know, practice, redoing, you know, sketching and finalization and everything that goes on before the product. And I feel like AI generated art is like void of that. It's just the outcome. So it can't replace art in that sense, because art is so much more than what you see. Obviously, it is not that way for everybody. Some people just see art as a thing to be looked at, and that's fine. But in my opinion, and I think it's the same for a lot of artists, it's not that. So it really can't. That's where AI generated art falls short. The fact that art can be generated with just a few prompts is impressive, but it is just generated from a bunch of keywords. It is not a process, and it's not like this manifestation of an artist's skill sets or thoughts and concepts. Personally, for me, whenever I create an artwork, it can vary how much I put into the work beforehand, but there is so much that constitutes an artwork. For example, the skill sets that I have developed way beforehand, the fact that I can draw or create videos or edit or whatever skill set I'm going to apply to the artwork had to have come beforehand, and my skill set is a part of that artwork. You know, what is the reason for this artwork? What topics am I looking for and thinking about when I'm making this artwork? And that heavily influences the artwork. It really does inform it. Through that is a bunch of research. Artists do a heck of a ton of research, and it might not be like the standard traditional research that you might be familiar with if you aren't in art spaces. It could be visual research, verbal research, you know, different methodologies that we use. And it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot to put into an artwork. You know, there's a lot of thinking, a lot of writing, a lot of discussions that happen when you make an artwork. Obviously, the process is different for so many people. Some people, it's not based on that kind of research of other things. It's research of yourself, and like inward introspection and all of that stuff. But it's still happening. There's still a process happening. And then the actual making takes time. You know, the fact that I am interacting with the artwork itself. I'm the one crafting it. There's still a person behind it. And I think that's something that is quite frustrating when it comes to this thing that AI generated art would take over, like, artists in the art world. Whenever art is discussed in these spaces, it seems to just isolate or negate or completely ignore the artist. Artists aren't really thought about that much and considered that much. And I think this objectification of art, bringing it back to AI generated art, it completely disregards the importance of the artist in an artwork. Right off the bat, an artwork wouldn't exist without the artist because the artist is making the artwork. Did that make sense? I feel like I said that very quickly. And obviously with AI generated art, that's not the case. It's a computer. In thinking that these artworks would, take over the art world, it's sort of inadvertently saying that the artist was not important in the first place, or at least that's how I thought about it initially. It is great that art can be generated quickly, in minutes, in seconds even, with AI generated art systems, but it's looking at it as an efficiency, which is great. It's efficient, because it takes time for us to make artworks. However, in only looking at its efficiency and the fact that you can pump out all these artworks in seconds, it is negating what happens in that long extended time it takes us artists to make art. And that time is actually quite precious, It's not like we're just sitting around painting really slowly, creating our books or our videos very slowly, just because vibes, No. That time that it takes for us to create art is precious. It can't take over such a broad thing or broad experience. The fact that art is used for so many different purposes across cultures around the world, solid proof that AI generated art can't take over. Art has so many different manifestations and purposes across many cultures. Art can be a source of liberation, it can be a source of expression, it can be something traditional or, a ritual. So that mere fact also is just like, get out of here. The other thing that I wanted to talk about in this weird objectification of art, another thing in this weird objectification that happens in AI art, the focus on the efficiency of its output. I feel like there's some sort of commodification. I honestly don't know how to put it, but this weird commodification of art. And I also feel this kind of way when it becomes the topic of art and NFTs. It just becomes an object. It becomes an object of either wealth or of status or something, but it just becomes this weird isolated thing that is void from the reason why the artist created it. I honestly don't know how else to describe it, and I've wanted to make a video on art and NFTs, but I really do not know a lot about NFTs. What the heck is a fungible token? Please don't explain it to me, because every time people explain it to me, I won't understand, okay? There's a weird commodification or objectification of art, and yes, in some terms art can be an object. It can be merely for aesthetics, but when you see AI art and you get excited that you can just be pumping out these artworks left, right, and center, my question is what do you think the significance of art is then? Is it merely the fact that you can produce so many? And in that sense, it just becomes very I don't know if consumeristic or capitalistic is the right word, but it just becomes a thing to be traded in a system. And I, for one part, have always felt a little uneasy about that thought of art. Yes, that is one of the ways how artists survive, trading art, selling art, that's how we can make a living. But when it merely becomes an object to be fit into this capitalistic system, yeah, it's a weird thing to navigate. And maybe that's something I want to hear more of your thoughts on, because I really don't know the answer, or I really don't know if what I'm feeling is the right feeling, or where I'm going with this train of thought. So I really like to hear your thoughts, if you understand what I'm saying, because I don't know if I'm actually making sense. Other concern that I mentioned was about plagiarism and copyright issues. This is also a topic I'm not well versed in, so I can't really speak much about it, but I understand the concern because apparently it sees here all of the, systems that they have been training using these millions of images without consent. Is that allowed? Is it, ethical? And what does it mean for the artist? Already there aren't enough, in my opinion, there really isn't enough legal protection for us artists. There isn't a lot of stuff that we could claim copyright over, which is quite frustrating because it's hard to cement or have enough protection for your art, especially if that is our craft, our business. This just adds a whole other layer of complication, and you may not understand why it is important for us to claim certain rights over our styles or our our intellectual property, but it is really important, and it is a topic that I am researching more into because as one gets into the art world, you really need to look out on how to protect yourself. There have been some artists that have screenshotted some AI generated art and shown that it is sort of plagiarizing their own art, even copying their artist tag, and that's quite scary because what if it comes to a point where an AI generated art makes something so close to what you've already created and someone else uses that and plagiarizes you essentially, so that should be thought about as well. It's it's quite, there's a lot to think about and a lot to look at when it comes to AI generated art and how it affects us. But with all that being said, in conclusion for now, I don't think AI art is going to be a direct threat to the art world. As I said, this is a huge historical thing. You can't just bring in some computers and bing bang boom, just up and take over an entire pillar of society. But I think it is something to include in the discourse of art. It's completely fine to have it as something in this community that people can use, artists can use as inspiration, or as a medium. It could become a medium if some artists decide to use it that way and see how to incorporate it. That could be cool, but I don't think it necessarily directly competes with art and artists and illustrators. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Honestly don't know. I seriously don't know much about tech. But in the meantime, I really do hope that there is more protection for artists and also more ethical practices around AI generated art. But if I could end this off with a message to people who aren't really artists or practicing artists, I just want to say, the next time you think about art or the next time you see art, think about who made it and what they might have been thinking about or what they might have been processing when they made it. Please let me know your thoughts on AI art below. I am thinking of making a video where I make art with keywords versus actual AI art. So if you want to see that, click the like button and I'll be sure to make that. Thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, if you like me, subscribe, comment down below, all that fun jazz, and until then.